done well when the leader of the country appeals to people's fears as opposed to their hopes. That's what worries me about Donald Trump.
Meantime, another Republican presidential debate coming Thursday. Rand Paul is pulling out in protest after the Fox Business Network demoted him to the aftercard debate. I'm Evan Haining.
As an entrepreneur, you're always on the go. So turn your mobile phone into a business phone system with Grasshopper, the entrepreneur's phone system. Make and receive business calls using our iPhone and Android apps. Get a new business number or keep your current one. Forward your calls to any phone and even get your voicemails transcribed. Join over 250,000 small businesses who stay connected with Grasshopper. See how it works at grasshopper.com, the entrepreneur's phone system.
Did you know 1 in 50 people has a brain aneurysm? Every 18 minutes, a brain aneurysm erupts. Half of brain aneurysms result in death. Will it strike you or someone you love? The Brain Aneurysm Foundation is the globally recognized leader in brain aneurysm education, awareness, advocacy, support, and research funding. The Brain Aneurysm Foundation, raising awareness, ending fear. To learn the facts at bafound.org. That's bafound.org.
Tuesday on the Rocket Sports and Entertainment Network, we'll finally know who is the college football champion. We'll review the big game, and we'll get into other things. The Lightning are in Colorado taking on the Avalanche, and then they come home to face the Pittsburgh Penguins later this week. We'll talk about this and more on the Tan Talk Radio Network, afternoons 2 to 4. It's the Rocket Sports and Entertainment Network.
It's that time for coffee. We're filling up with fresh brew from House Coffee Shop. It's the Tan Talk Radio Network coffee choice. Your next cup of coffee is waiting. Are you hungry too? House Coffee Shop offers daily baked goods and deli items, including boar's head meats and cheese. Enjoy a fresh cup of coffee at the House Coffee Shop at 3690 East Bay Drive. Locally owned and operated in the heart of the city of Largo. For more information, visit them online at thehousecoffeeshop.com. House spelled H-A-U-S.
On Saturdays from 3 to 4 p.m., I am Dawn Reese with Hollywood Connections. My show is exciting. We have major stars, major artists, major movie producers, agents, casting directors. I even help cast for Home Shopping Network. You might be on that show as well. We have new talent segments. Be discovered. Remember Hollywood Connections on Saturday from 3 to 4 on Tan Talk Radio. I'm Dawn Reese, your host. Tune in.
Are you suffering from IRS problems? Do you owe back taxes you can't pay? Is your paycheck or bank account being levied? Or maybe you haven't filed tax returns in years and simply don't know what to do. This is Darren T. Mish to tell you that if you're tired of IRS problems hanging over your head and are ready for a fresh start, we may be able to help. Call the law offices of Darren T. Mish at 888-GET-MISH, 888-GET-MISH. I can help you file old tax returns, work to release tax liens or stop wage levies, even negotiate deals to pay off back taxes at a discount, sometimes for pennies on the dollar. Hey, let's face it, these days it's not hard to get into tax trouble. A divorce, failed business, health problems, you name it. The point is, IRS problems may be solved if you're willing to take the first step. Call for a free consultation at 888-GET-MISH. That's 888-438-6474. Or go to the web at getirshelp.com, because the one sure thing is, IRS problems don't solve themselves, so get Mish. 888-438-6474. Principal Office, Tampa.
Come check out Sports Legends, the newest sports bar in Clearwater, with over 50 60-inch TVs and a large menu with upscale options. All day, every day, buckets of beer, buy 4, get 1 free, and domestic pitchers for $7.99 for the month of January. Happy hour is Monday through Friday from 2 to 6. Sports Legends is located right across from Bright House Field on the corner of Drew Street and US 19. Visit them online at sportslegends.biz and join the email list to get a $5 coupon towards your next meal. Drink responsibly.
This is the Tan Talk Radio Network.
The Erin Rizzo Show on the Tan Talk Network. This is the show for seniors, caregivers, and their families. She is the author of the best-selling book, Aging in America, Navigating Our Healthcare System, which is available at Amazon, Nook, Kindle, and at agingguidebook1.com. Having worked over 20 years in the industry, She has the insider information about the healthcare system and how it works, and will help you navigate around the business side of aging in America. She also works as a patient advocate, consultant, and educator. Now here's your host, Karen Rizzo.
Good morning, Tampa Bay. I hope everybody had a wonderful holiday season and is enjoying a happy new year. We are here discussing the business of aging in America. The show is based around the information on aging in America, navigating our healthcare system. And one of the things that we're talking about every week is the differences in our healthcare system. Can you get it? And what we basically would need to do as we get older and as we age and as we have to make very, very difficult decisions for ourselves and our loved ones. So I appreciate you checking in with me every week here. We've been live on Tuesdays on the Tan Talk Network, and we're having some technical difficulties today, but we're getting it all figured out by our show Eddie here. So bear with us. But I am really, really excited to be able to let you know that we have a guest in-house today who is Jack Rosenkranz. He's an elder law attorney, and he's been practicing elder law, which is different than a lot of the other kinds of law that are out there. I know we hear commercials every day about people suing for this, that, and the other, but elder law is really very special. These guys take care of our seniors and our older people, and they handle the very, very complexities of protecting someone as they get older, protecting their assets, protecting, connecting them with benefits. So I'm really excited to have my dear friend Jack here. He's been practicing since 1991. One of the things that we're going to do today, which is a little different, is that if you have any questions for the elder law attorney, Jack is a great guy. He's very down to earth. I've seen him in action with many, many families. And feel free to call into the station. The number here is 727-441-3000. It's, again, that's 727-441-3000. And so, Jack, welcome. I'm so glad you could make time to be with us today.
Karen, it's great to be here, and thank you so much for having me as a guest. I truly appreciate it.
Well, you know, I've worked with you and Brooke, your case manager, on a lot of different family situations, and they can get a little tricky, to be honest, especially when you're dealing with different adult children, family members from out of state. You know, mom or dad has money, doesn't have money, or is entitled to benefits they don't know about. So why don't you kind of tell everybody what got you into elder law? How did it all start?
Well, I'm a third-generation attorney. I grew up in the law, and I knew in order to get the butter passed, I probably would end up going to law school. After I went through college, I read a book called Age Wave, and Age Wave was written by Ken Dykewalt, and he was talking about when the boomers go through aging, when they get to be older, when they get to the 60s and 70s, they're going to age so much different than the elders of the past.
Right.
And they were right.
Yeah.
And then I read another book in law school called The Social Transformation of Medicine by Paul Starr. Another book that took me from 1880 to 1980 in healthcare in the U.S. and how our healthcare system developed. And after that, Karen, I was hooked. I wanted to be doing something that dealt with elders and healthcare as I went forward in my career. So when I was at 25 years in my practice, 27 years in my practice, I would be able to be prepared to serve that market. And so I went after this market, focusing on their needs and seeing how that could happen. And what I learned is there are three universal truths.
You've told me these truths before, but my listeners got to hear this.
Okay, the first is when people come in, they say, oh, it's not about the money, Mr. Rosenkranz.
It's always about the money.
It's always about the money. And I mean that with the most loving families, how you pay for care, how you handle money for care, how, if you can afford it in cash flow, what's the effect of that? And if you can't, as you burn principal to pay for that care, what are you going to do? And the second universal truth, the person who travels the furthest causes the most trouble. Now, it may seem like that's a little bit outlandish, but generally they're the ones that will not have seen what's going on in the day-to-day basis. And they're the ones that when they come into town, they come in on a Friday, they leave on a Sunday, and by God, between Friday and Sunday, everything will be better because they are here.
Right.
And the third universal truth, I'll do anything for Mama, Now, I have a lot of respect for people that are caregivers. I'm dealing with issues myself with caregiving. And I can tell you there's so much that they can do. But I also recognize there's certain things that caregivers, perhaps this caregiver, shouldn't do because they're not the best person to do the job. And knowing those resources and understanding how to pay for those resources and to deal with that family dynamic is so important.
Yeah, and one of the things that I've seen through the years is so much abuse sometimes by adult children or primary caregivers, a little bit of exploitation, using mom or dad's income to live under the guise of, I'm going to be here to take care of them. All that is good and well. One of the things that I found this one family through the years, and I don't know if you recommend this for your clients, but one of the women, she was really, really sharp. She was like an 80-something-year-old, really on her A game. She had her power of attorney be her son, who was a banker investment out of state, and she had her healthcare surrogate be her daughter, who lived here locally, who was also a CNA. Didn't have access to the money, but she was very good at health decisions and medical choices. So sometimes families get into those situations, I've seen as well.
Well, it really comes down to the roles that they choose to play,
right,
and whether if they're going to take on the responsibility, the amount of respect they bring to that role. Because most things is about responsibility and respect. And if you're going to take on those roles and want to excel in those roles, really proper education is important.
Yeah, definitely. The education piece can't be stressed enough. I mean, I've seen situations where people weren't the best in the best role. I mean, there was one case where Department of Children and Families was involved. The facility I worked for at the time was involved because the daughter had been leaving her mom in 2 diapers for an extended period of time, over 10 hours a day. And that was because she worked 2 jobs and she didn't have the knowledge, didn't understand that, she was in a role that she couldn't manage. And as her health was declining, it was getting worse and worse and worse.
Fatigue and just total frustration because not able to get enough relief oftentimes starts before exploitation ever happens.
Right.
And generally it's a situation that they need a pathway out. And oftentimes good advice can walk through that pathway and make you financially secure.
Right. So who would you say is an ideal candidate that would need an elder law attorney? Because it's not like it comes up over the dinner table like, hey, we're going to go see Jack tomorrow.
Sure. I think it falls into 2 classes of people. First, those that are not in crisis. Right now, they're healthy, they're doing well, they're doing great. Very inexpensive to go and get advanced planning documents done. By advanced planning documents, I'm talking about powers of attorney. Right. Powers of attorney deal with financial affairs, how people pay bills, write checks. But the law for powers of attorney has changed over the years.
That's true.
And if you haven't had a chance to update your power of attorney, that's a good reason to do it because there's a lot of power in that power of attorney, and you want to make sure you have a powerful power of attorney.
Now, are you finding some, especially if they're out of state, that are not legal in the state of Florida?
Well, depending if it's signed at the end and witnessed by 2 people and honored in that state,
okay, that
might be fine. But I will tell you, it's always good if you come to the state of Florida to have your Florida documents. Another document that's called an advance directive is a healthcare surrogate. Mm-hmm. Healthcare surrogate allows someone else to make healthcare decisions for you, only if you cannot. And again, we recommend living wills, which deals with end-of-life issues, so your desires are known about what sort of treatments you want. These advanced planning documents are very important, and minor estate planning stuff is very important. The second class of people that come to an elder care attorney is somebody who is touching principle to pay for care.
Okay.
When they are needing more and more care or fearful of needing more and more care and don't have enough cash flow to pay for the care that they're going to need and will have to spend their principal, often, an elder law attorney can advise you the best way to spend your money. I'm not saying it'll be all protected. It may be. But what it does is spend it wisely. And how to be savvy and how you spend money is so important when you talk about health care.
Well, and, we had Sue Ross on a couple of weeks ago from Affordable Home Care, and she was going through some of the rates, and it's extremely expensive when you do start needing showers, bathing. Some companies, they require a lot of minimum hours. Some of them won't take a 1-hour case just to give mom or dad a shower. And a lot of times the average cost is $20 plus an hour.
Yes, it can get expensive. So looking at how you can offset that expense, looking at seeing what government programs you might be entitled to, and what would it take to do things slightly different to have a sustainable care plan that doesn't financially exhaust.
So, okay, a lot of people wonder, they hear the word estate planning thrown around. Now, maybe since you're the expert, you can tell us, what is estate planning?
Well, estate planning means different things to different people. When I use the term estate planning, it comes down to a real simple concept. What do you want to have happen after you die? You're not going to be able to tell anybody if you're dead, so let's get it down and document it the right way. So estate planning could be wills, trust,
right.
And it could also be something very informal by going down to the bank and setting it up to be in trust for, or pay on death, or transfer on death. Those are sort of designations by the very depository agreement. When you put the money, those are the type of agreements that will name a beneficiary. And so many people are able to name beneficiaries as part of their estate planning as an inexpensive way to do it. However, if you're trying to reach up from the grave and control what happens to the children or the spouse, you are able to control those funds by using a trust. And it's a way for you to continue on and have a lot of control over how those funds are spent. And it really depends on your personal need. And I strongly advise people to, particularly if they have children, to make sure they update, make sure they have a simple will, so that if you want everything to go to your wife,
Right.
she won't have to be sharing it with the kids upon your death because you did not draft a will, because it would end up being shared not only with the wife but the children as well.
Right, and a lot of times there are second marriages, adult children from previous marriages. It does cut out the bickering, the fighting, and the who's going to get the jewelry, who's going to get the china, making sure that those decisions are made in advance.
Absolutely. And we see, one of the things I truly believe is transparency can be very helpful. And a lot of times people with family dynamics are operating out of fear. And if you bring knowledge and choices to families, you're able to eliminate the fear and then a little bit of the dynamic.
Right. Well, I know I've seen personally families that, boy, it can be a real free-for-all once something happens to mom or dad. And, any of us, there's no crystal ball. There's no guarantee. We're all aging. We're all getting older. There's no way to decide or plan ahead for something like a stroke or what I call an unplanned event. So I've seen the families that actually dot the I's and cross the T's with an elder law attorney do a little bit better. So maybe when we get back from the break, you can go into whether or not somebody has to be really on that verge of going broke before they contact an elder care attorney.
Of course.
This is the Tan Talk Radio Network.
Are you caring for a loved one who needs more time and attention than you have to give? Arcadia Home Care and Staffing provides specially trained companions who provide personal care with an extra measure of warmth and professionalism so those you care about can have their needs met right at home. Keeping your loved ones in familiar surroundings can make a world of difference in their quality of life. Call Arcadia today, the Quality Home Care Service. All Arcadia caregivers are background checked, bonded, and insured. In Pinellas or Pasco, call 727-579-9414. Other areas, call 813-306-0007.
Listen, do you hear that? It's the sound of your senior care community's IT systems running smoothly. In this time of ever-changing regulations and requirements to share electronic health information, that's not easy to achieve. After all, you're in the business of taking care of people, not computers. Let the team at QShift, Inc. put our 30 years of healthcare IT experience to work for you. Think of us as ever-vigilant partners working to manage your electronic health records, IT planning, network security, systems integration, and IT training needs. With affordable solutions for skilled nursing, assisted living, and continuing care communities, the QShift team has the services for you. Why QShift? Because we're there for you every shift, every day. So go to qshift.com, that's QUESHIFT.com, or call Rick at 717-428-9020 to learn more.
Hi, this is Patsy with a Z. Have you written a book? Want to write one? Or do you just enjoy reading? Listen to Joy on Paper every Tuesday morning at 11 o'clock for the story behind the book as I interview best-selling authors, agents, and publishers. Remember, that's Joy on Paper on Tampa Bay's Tan Talk Radio, 1340 WTAN.
This is the Tan Talk Radio Network.
Welcome back, Tampa Bay. You're listening to the Karen Rizzo Show. I have here in the station elder care attorney. I keep noticing that, Jack Rosenkranz, in the house here. So feel free to call in any questions. If you think you might need an elder law attorney, you're not sure, your family already has one, and you don't know if the documents were drafted correctly, or if you just want a little bit more information on what his practice offers, which is a little bit different than some of the other practices I've worked with through the years. Feel free to call into the station. The number here is 727-441-3000, and we will absolutely have Jack available to answer your calls. One of the things I wanted to get into a little bit is, whether or not some people think that before they can contact an elder law attorney, they have to be out of money or close to out of money. So maybe you can discuss with everybody a little bit more about that.
To me, it really comes down to not being out of money, but when you're fearful of touching your savings.
Okay.
And when you get to that trigger point, whether you have a small amount of money or a large amount of money, you cannot sustain this on an ongoing basis. And so many government programs, particularly for married couples, will not demand that they go broke. It will actually protect them and allow the middle class to continue on and provide health care benefits for the elder. So depending on what your assets are and what's counted and what's not, it becomes very important. Many people are afraid in the state of Florida, if you ask for government assistance to pay for the nursing home, that you will lose your home. And
Right.
keep in mind, in Florida,
I've heard that a lot through the years.
in Florida, it may be true in other states, but in Florida, if that's your home and it's a homestead, and if you got 100% better, you would want to go back home, that intent to return, the intent to return back to your home, that's considered assumed no matter what. And so for that reason, that house is going to be protected, and that's different than in other states.
It is different because I had, when I was working for the nursing home, I did 10 years of that, and I had a family that said, well, we're too sick to get down to Florida, so just keep my uncle's house as payment for his care. And it's like, doesn't work like that in Florida. You cannot just take the home. There's no trading for chickens. People can keep a home and a car and a certain amount of assets depending if they're married or not married.
Right, and we're going to talk about that right now.
Okay.
Many people are unaware that retirement funds, such as an IRA or 401k, may be excluded if it's done correctly. And you could have $300,000-$400,000 in a qualified fund and still theoretically be eligible for assistance.
Okay.
And some people, if you look at the net worth and you're looking at a balance sheet, you would say this person could never be eligible for assistance. But depending on how the assets are held and what they do with those assets could mean that they're eligible or not eligible for government benefits. And it could save $70,000, $80,000 a year to do it correctly.
Right. And I know I've heard horror stories of people that either purchased a new annuity or sometimes refinanced a house, took out a second mortgage, and they didn't realize it could trigger all these other problems because either they're receiving assistance from the veterans benefit or from the state. And it's very, very very crucial, I think, to be dealing with an elder law attorney because you have to have a special set of eyes on this stuff.
One of the biggest benefits that I see is when you have a married couple and one of the spouses is in the nursing home, and he may have been the high-earning spouse, and the other is in the community, the state will allow you to shift some of the income from the husband to the wife.
Right. Spousal diversion.
Spousal diversion. But it's capped at certain amounts.
Right.
And oftentimes, many people have income from their husband that's much higher than what that cap is. And it's possible through getting legal advice to get not some of that income, but to get all of that income to help continue to support you in the community.
And I have seen that happen where a lot of people think, oh my goodness, my spouse is going into the nursing home, call it a day, that's it. I'm in so much trouble because I'm going to lose their income. But again, in the state of Florida, which might be different than other states, that spousal diversion can really make the difference of keeping the homestead. Even sometimes, everybody swears they're not going to go into a nursing home, Jack. I've heard this, for years. But most of our nursing homes are full of people that are in short-term recovery. They're under Medicare, receiving physical and occupational therapy on a 100-day basis. We don't know if they're going to go long-term or not. That's going to depend on the level of their recovery. So knowing that takes that fear away from.
A lot of people are unaware that historically, the percentage of people on short-term stay at a nursing home under Medicare is about 23%. And it's about 75% for those that are long-term and on Medicaid already.
Right.
1% is private pay, which leaves us at 99%. And the last 1%, no one pays, because there's always one in the crowd.
There's always one. We called them jumpers. They would usually go from one nursing home to another. They'd kind of burn a bridge, didn't pay the co-pays. And then what they didn't always realize, which is really funny, is that most of the nursing homes are owned by maybe 5 companies. So if you owe one of them money and then try to go to a sister facility, that you're still going to owe them the same money. So it doesn't work like that. Now, one of the things that I am excited about and always have been excited about is highlighting veterans benefits.
Oh, absolutely.
Because so many of our elders, it was a mandatory draft through World War I, II, and Korea. And these guys, if you listen to the stories, they didn't just enlist like a lot of, nothing against our young military these days, but they didn't just sign up for 4 years and feel like they're doing their shift and then they're done. It was a mandatory draft, and they were thinking they weren't coming home when they were deployed anywhere because of the wars. So what are you doing in your practice to help our retired military and their spouses?
Oftentimes, they're unaware that they could be eligible for benefits because they were not injured in the service. And they don't realize merely because they served that they have a pension benefit that may be appropriate for them.
Right.
And this benefit, they may not have ever been eligible before. And the reason why is they didn't have enough medical expenses.
Okay. So as their medical expenses increase, they may now become into a position where they're eligible for assistance from the veteran.
Oh, absolutely. And if you have enough unreimbursed medical expenses,
right,
they'll reduce your what they count as income. And this pension from the VA is substantial if you're married. It's over $2,000.
Yeah.
It could be as much as that. And this substantial pension that you could obtain is going to be based on how much income is in the household, and that could be reduced by if you spend 100% of your income and your wife's income on care, it's as if you had no income from the VA.
Now, under the aid and attendance benefits, have you seen anything cross your desk, any new numbers changing for 2016?
The numbers are going to stay the same because cost of living index has not risen.
Okay.
The biggest thing that's going to occur, which will be sometime in 2016, is a huge rule change, a massive rule change.
I've heard about this.
This rule change is going to deal with income, assets, net worth, transfers of assets, things that people would do to become eligible for assistance. And it's going to recalculate how someone is going to be considered in need at the time of need. So it's very pivotal. And when it does go into effect, it will change so much about what we're doing with the pension program with aid and attendance.
Yeah, and maybe you can tell people a little bit more about aid and attendance, because I have been shocked to see families through the years that were eligible for aid and attendance. They didn't know they were eligible. In fact, I had a client who worked for the Pentagon, and it took him 10 months to find out about the aid and attendance program that his mom was eligible for because of his dad serving. So maybe you can tell us about that.
Absolutely. Not only the veteran, but also the survivor of the veteran also, like the widow, can certainly be provided for as well. And when you look at this program, it really is a means-based program to prevent our veterans, our heroes, and their survivors from being poor, to being impoverished. And our goal was to lift them above impoverishment. And for that reason, there's a pension. And if they are ever below a certain amount of income, this pension can kick in and supplement their income. And if they're married, they'll get a little bit more. And if they need aid and attendance, someone to care for them, they'll get even more. And so when we're looking at the numbers, that could be as much monthly as $2,120 just for a husband and wife.
Right.
And that could go a long way to helping pay for care and increasing quality of life. Because let's say both of them husband and wife were at assisted living and they needed to be at assisted living. That additional $2,120 goes a long way towards taking them out of impoverishment because of their medical expenses.
Right. And I know a lot of people, the other big misconception I've heard through the years is that we can only get aid and attendance if mom or dad are going into a home.
Well, again, with assisted living and with nursing home, it's pretty clear that these numbers really are depending on what your medical expenses are.
Right.
When you're at home, depending on what those expenses are, you may very well be able to get all of those reimbursements through the VA as well, considered a medical expense. And if you're able to get it considered a medical expense, then it's deducted off income. And if it's deducted off income, it reduces your income for the pension. So home care can also be covered very nicely with the Veterans Aid and Attendance Program and pension.
I think that's a great program because one of the things that caused me to start writing my book on navigating the healthcare system was I was told by, an adult son who, like you said, your universal truth had flown in from New York, coming down here to handle mom. And I was trying to explain that she was eligible for the aid and attendance benefit, more than likely, and that she needed to see an elder law attorney. And of course, he said to me, "You're just trying to get a sale." And I'm like, okay, well, I make the same amount of money whether you get this extra money that your mom is entitled to or not. And it caused me to want to buy a book to be able to give to families about that amongst other programs like Medicaid and
absolutely.
And I couldn't find one. There was a lot of books out there, and we've heard from other authors that have gone through the caregiving experience for mom or dad having a stroke or Alzheimer's, dementia, and God bless them, it is a difficult job. But I didn't ever find anything that was really nuts and bolts practical that I could purchase to say, here, I'm not lying, take it.
What's fascinating is these large topics, investigate this, investigate other areas. One of the huge things that people don't investigate, particularly if they're a veteran and fall within the pension program with aid and attendance or fall within any sort of disability, is being enrolled in VA health care.
Yes.
VA healthcare, in my opinion, is one of the best settings of care that you can find because it's totally different than Medicare. It is based on a chronic care model. And when you talk about home care, some of the most innovative home care is coming out of the VA over the past 10 years.
And a lot of people don't realize the VA offers a MICM team. What that is, it's a mental health community-based team of nurses and social workers that if you have a veteran of any age, that is going through PTSD, depression, substance abuse, homelessness, that this MICM team follows them. Even if they're in assisted living or if they're at home, wherever they call home, that this nurse and social worker keeps tabs on them. And if there's any interventions needed, they make sure that before it gets too far, they do intervene. They get the orders from the doctors, get the medications changed. So I've ran into, and you probably have too, a lot of older gentlemen especially who served in the military, and they remember MASH units. So they don't really trust the VA health system as much. But at the same time, and this is one of the things I've argued with a lot of older retired military, is that the government budgets X amount of money for veterans to be enrolled in the VA health system. So even if you want to have your doctor on the outside, to still enroll, because you don't want to take that money away from someone else who's in desperate need of it. And you know how it is, it's use it or lose it. The government's not going to give more.
Well, particularly with the VA healthcare, two programs I really like. The first is the home-based primary care. So if you're too sick to go into the hospital or too sick to go into the clinic, they will actually come to you.
Nice.
Now, the difference with the home-based primary care is you can't keep your own doc because they're too involved.
Right.
There's a program also that's layered with it that's relatively innovative, and it's been out for a while, but it's been sort of a secret, and I'll let you in on it.
Okay.
The VA has one called medical foster care homes, and these are very small settings of care that are supervised by the VA that provide a home-like setting, and it's very affordable, and the home-based primary care comes in and gives the care, and it's been a magical sort of solution that has helped veterans anywhere from being those that are homeless in special settings and those that are in need for elders that need a lot of assistance at home. Sometimes you can stay at a medical foster care home in a more home-like environment and not have to be at an assisted living or at a nursing home, and bringing it into the community, taking it out of the facilities and taking it out of the hospital is what the VA is about today. And yes, you'll read in the paper that they have problems. I'm not saying they don't, but I would suggest the VA healthcare system is actually superior to the one that we have under Medicare right now.
Yeah, I would agree with that. They've come in terms of even their nursing home has just an amazing amount of state-of-the-art equipment. Now, the one here locally, Bay Pines, only allows veterans to go to their nursing home for a very short period of time, 30 days or less is usually what their criteria is. However, people don't always realize that they also contract with other nursing centers. Sometimes they refer to those that under their Medicare. There's a lot of different things that veterans are going to be able to utilize. So maybe when we come back from the break here, we can talk a little bit more about the new Medicaid programs, because I think that's changed a lot in our state as well.
Mm-hmm.
Don't lie to me. You think I'm blind, but I've got eyes to see.
This is the Tan Talk Radio Network.
Are you caring for a loved one who needs more time and attention than you have to give? Arcadia Home Care and Staffing provides specially trained companions who provide personal care with an extra measure of warmth and professionalism so those you care about can have their needs met right at home. Keeping your loved ones in familiar surroundings can make a world of difference in their quality of life. Call Arcadia today, the Quality Home Care Service. All Arcadia caregivers are background checked, bonded, and insured. In Pinellas or Pasco, call 727-579-9414. Other areas, call 813-306-0007.
Listen, do you hear that? It's the sound of your senior care community's IT systems running smoothly. In this time of ever-changing regulations and requirements to share electronic health information, that's not easy to achieve. After all, you're in the business of taking care of people, not computers. Let the team at QShift, Inc. put our 30 years of healthcare IT experience to work for you. Think of us as ever-vigilant partners working to manage your electronic health records, IT planning, network security, systems integration, and IT training needs. With affordable solutions for skilled nursing, assisted living, and continuing care communities, the QShift team has the services for you. Why QShift? Because we're there for you every shift, every day. So go to qshift.com, that's QUESHIFT.com, or call Rick at 717-428-9020 to learn more.
Hi, this is John Austin, host of the Tan Talk Radio Network's Book Club, inviting you to join us every Tuesday at noon to hear talented new national and international authors discuss their books. The program features both fiction and nonfiction titles and is sure to add terrific new books for your must-read list. If you love books, be sure to listen every Tuesday at noon for the Book Club right here on the Tan Talk Radio Network.
This is the Tan Talk Radio Network.
Welcome back, Tampa Bay. You're listening to the Karen Rizzo Show on navigating our healthcare system. We're blessed to have Jack Rosenkranz in the house today. He's an elder law attorney that also has a care element to his practice. He's been at this in Florida for over 25 years and a third-generation elder care attorney. Who knew? One of the things we were talking about before the break was some of the components to the VA system. So maybe you can just finish that up a little bit.
Certainly.
More.
When we're talking about VA healthcare, it's also, you have to remember that the state of Florida has a chain of nursing homes only for veterans. And these state of Florida veterans nursing homes, if you have a service connection disability, 70% or more, they will pay 100% of your care. And so you could end up having no cost with regard to the cost of your care in a nursing home if it's service related. But they also take Medicaid. and they'll also take private pay. But for the most part, even if a veteran has no way to get payment, they will always have a place for them at the state veterans home. Many people are afraid that if the state's running it and it's state run, that it will be inferior care. I will tell you that that is very well maintained facility with seems to have low turnover, in my opinion, and it seems to be very stable and well regarded when it comes to care. All of the nursing homes have been very, very good in that way from the state veterans homes. Now, the other thing to note about the Medicaid aspect is there's a lot of change going on in Medicaid, Karen.
Oh, yeah, there's a lot. This last year we saw a change in what used to be called the Medicaid diversion program. It's now called Medicaid long-term care. Maybe you can tell our listeners a little bit more how that has evolved into.
Well, I've always said, regardless of your political views,
correct.
When Bush was as governor of the state of Florida, he did a pilot program to see how private industry and insurance could address long-term care as an economic solution as opposed to just having the government manage the care and write checks to nursing homes. And so there were so many waiver programs that the government would allow states to experiment to see if they could do things differently, as well as the granddaddy program of Medicaid, the institutional care program that actually paid for nursing home care. And what Governor Bush did, and then later implemented by Governor Scott, is they pushed through and got federal approval to change our entire Medicaid system to a managed care approach.
Yes.
And so a managed care approach in private industry is what we have today. And it really breaks down into two approaches. One is institutionally based, which is nursing homes.
Right.
And the other is home and community-based services, which is assisted living, contracted services, home care, day programming, as well as care in the home to a smaller degree. And so we see so much more private companies now being contracted with regard to the Medicaid dollar that it's really, it's not state-run care, it's very much insurance-run care.
It is, and a lot of these companies, they all have different fee schedules, they have different rates, but they will contract with certain private duty home care agencies to be able to send a CNA into the home to help with bathing, grooming, meals. We also know that they've contracted with a lot of the assisted living centers, and they will pay up to $1,200 additional money. I think it's the highest one right now of the 4 companies we have in our Tampa Bay region, that they'll pay in addition for assisted living. So what that means is if you have someone who is struggling and they're needing care in the home or they're needing care in assisted living, even if they have some other means and wealth to them, they might have a way to be eligible for this.
Now, the trick when you're dealing with government benefits is what I call the amount they're able to pay as a stipend. That's more what I refer to it as.
Okay.
Because if you're on jury duty and they give you a stipend for lunch, is that going to be enough for the lunch you're going to want to have?
$7 doesn't pay for much these days.
Well, I'm glad to have it. It's better than not having it.
It's better than nothing.
Better than nothing. And it goes substantially towards that $12 sandwich you might get at the grill. So when you're looking at this and you see that stipend come in, the trick is, are there any other stipends I can layer with it? Maybe something from the VA with the aid and attendance, maybe some of the income. Maybe it makes more sense to pull out of my IRA in a different way.
Oh, that's true, too.
And so how do I touch savings? How do I recognize when the right time is to spend and how to do it? That's the biggest thing that we're seeing as a shift in planning, is that people are looking not only at government benefits, but also personal responsibility. And how do you weave personal responsibility, government benefits, at the same time maintaining the spouse in the community?
Well, and definitely all these programs are so good because the whole goal is, one of the things I preach extensively is aging empowered and being empowered as you get older and being able to have the knowledge of this so that you're not a victim and you're not being ping-ponged around our system, which can be very confusing for people, let alone if they are by themselves, if the children are out of state, or if they've, find themselves in a situation where their care needs are getting more extensive. So,
and you're absolutely right, because this whole concept of self-directed care, the whole concept of really patient-directed care, when you start to look at how care is going to change, it's going to come down to your preferences and how you want to receive care. And then the other part of the equation is, how are you going to pay for it?
Right.
because in the past you had less choice, but more funding, and you had to take their choices. Now you can have more choice,
right?
But you may not have all the funding you need,
right?
And so you have to be more creative in how you do that.
Well, and the average lifespan's 99.3 right now. So I know we're having more 90-year-olds.
What'd you say?
The average lifespan in our country is 99.3 years of age.
Wow.
It's the first time in our nation's history that we actually have more grandparents than teenagers. It's the first time in our nation's history that the baby boomers are the biggest population demographic, from those born 1946 to 1964. So we are seeing, like you said, more choices, but we also see people that are outliving a lot of their assets and things that they had acquired through their lifetime, and are having to be a little more creative about that. And that's one of the reasons why you need to have an elder law attorney that's going to be an advocate. You need somebody that's going to go look at your whole situation, boil it down to the details, figure out what your needs are, and make sure that everybody is prepared. A lot of people don't realize that Medicaid in the state of Florida, under that long-term care, is even paying for daycare services.
Yep.
And adult daycare is one of the many choices that we never used to have in the past.
I tell you, respite is so important, because one of the great things adult daycare can do is truly give the caregiver an opportunity for a break.
Yeah, and we want people to utilize those respite programs, because when you are a full-time caregiver, like you said, the fatigue can kick in, the stress load can be huge. It's very task-oriented. And because of that, sometimes the primary caregiver doesn't have that minute for themselves, or even to let the elder law people. Oh, I guess we have somebody calling in for you, Jack. Dan, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Karen. Good. It's Dan Wendell. As I was leaving the station, I heard you guys talk, and I had a question that I had to ask you guys, because it's something that's been bothering me lately with all the financial aspects of paying for this stuff, long-term care. And
right.
I think you guys might have an answer, but I don't know. So the question revolves around these new, I don't know if you've seen them, the life insurance that you can use to pay, instead of waiting for you to die, you can use the death benefit on yourself to pay for long-term care.
There are many products out there that are excellent products to address this, because one of the biggest issues people have with long-term care insurance is they don't make a claim on it because they've been healthy and then they pass away, and there's actually no return on that payment. And so what that's done by this sort of a product that the insurance companies have come out, they moved it from just an expense into an asset class. And so instead, you're talking about a life insurance rider in it. You're talking about if you need the money back, you can pull it out. It is a great tool that many people don't realize. Instead of having money in CDs, getting like 2 or 3% if you're lucky, that you'll actually have something that gives a decent rate of return compared to that, and still provide a life insurance benefit and provide a multiplier if you need long-term care. Did I describe this accurately, sir?
That's what I'm talking about, and I'm a big proponent of them, but my question has to do with whether or not, if you go on a government program or Medicaid assistance, do they, if you don't have cash value, can they force you to accelerate that death benefit and say, you know what, I know you have this life insurance without cash, but
I was researching a different issue on this, and I believe the answer is no. They cannot force you.
No.
Okay. So
actually, I've worked with getting people applied for Medicaid when they're going into a nursing home or assisted living setting. The government really can't force anything. What they can do is they can deny them if they think they have too many assets, and if they consider that to be an asset. But luckily, most of the people making those decisions aren't always aware of the fact that they can cash in those life insurance policies.
It really depends on the policy and how it's written. Some of the policies make it clear that it's really is a flexible choice. The question is that asset available traditionally? Right. And I recently had a similar type policy, a life insurance policy that had some language in it that I thought it was dramatically different, which required me to research it. And so, it's going to depend on the product. It's going to depend on how it's written. And yes, I am not giving a direct answer because I have to look at the policy.
I'm not looking for a direct answer. I just want to know if you had an experience yet, because they're relatively new in terms of it's going to be starting now that people start utilizing these things that they bought them maybe 7 years ago or something.
Right.
And I'm curious as to what's going to happen when they have to make that decision. Do I accelerate my death benefit? Do I increase my annuity payments in order to not qualify or qualify for Medicaid, so on?
If I recall correctly, and I have to look at the policy, but if I recall correctly, when you trigger the long-term care aspect of the benefit, it changes some of the nature of the policy. And so I'd have to look at how that triggers. It's an interesting question and one that we really will be focusing on. Mm-hmm. And if you're asking about the general trend in society and what I see in long-term care, I would say that the risk of going to a nursing home gets smaller and smaller, and the risk of being personally responsible for your care outside of a nursing home gets larger and larger. And so the idea of personal responsibility, financial integrity of the Medicaid system, and having the government benefits truly there when it's needed, it's going to be a challenge between the budgets that the legislature have and what this community can support. And so it's always exciting. It's an exciting area that's always up for change.
I'm really happy that you guys are in tune with this trend, and I'm glad. Thanks for your answer. Have a great day.
All right, you too. Thanks for calling in, Dan. One of the things I always like to do as we get into the last couple of minutes of elder law is really have a call to action. Now, if somebody really wants to sit and talk with you and your team and your staff, what's the easiest way for them to get a hold of you?
Well, if you're online, you can go to lawforelders.com.
With the number 4.
With the number 4, but it also works with FOR.
Okay.
So it goes either way, lawforelders.com. You can go right there, have a little chat screen. They'll interview and take some information. Or in the alternative, you can call my office, 813-223-4195. But please reach out, get some advice before you're in need, because it's terrible to be planning in crisis, and it's easily avoided if you take some proactive steps.
And actually, from the healthcare providers, one of the reasons why I wanted to include elder law on this show is because it's a great partner as professionals that are trying to take care of mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, whoever, a spouse, even adult children. When we see as professionals and as the hired caregivers, if you will, we see advance directives already drafted. We see power of attorney papers already done. It makes our job so much easier because we don't have to guess, and then we don't have to have, especially the larger families where you have 3 or 4 adult children, like who's calling the shots here? I mean, it sometimes gets into too many cooks in the kitchen. And when they've already met with an elder law attorney, when the older person themselves has decided, this person's taking care of this for me, this person's taking care of that for me, I don't want to be here, I want to be at home, or I want to be in this community instead of that community, it makes the journey so much smoother.
I tell you, an informed elder is an empowered elder, and with that empowerment, they're able to take control and not be a victim at all, because it's your life. How are you going to live it, and how are you going to excel?
Right. And that's one of the things that I love to see. I love to see that our older people enjoying the beaches, enjoying their retirement, especially, we talked a lot about the VA system and those who served our country, World War I, World War II, Korea, and are the reason we're not speaking German. It's nice to see them not just educated and empowered, but really enjoying their lives. One of the things, I always try to get into some local community events that are going on, and this is an amazing thing that's happening tomorrow at the Largo Community Center. There's an author, Peter Rabins, he's a doctor that wrote the 36 Hour, and he is going to be doing a Alzheimer's caregiver seminar tomorrow. It's free, it's open to the public, and it's being sponsored by Art and Quartz. They do memory care specifically. And one of the things that he's going to be doing, he's a director of geriatric and neuropsychiatry, and he is going to be there from tomorrow, Wednesday, January 13th. That's going to be from 2 o'clock to 3:30. They're encouraging people to register ahead of time, 1:30 to 2 o'clock to be there. I would come check it out. If you are dealing with anyone with Alzheimer's, dementia, it's a great book. I read it. It was an easy read, which is hard to do if you're a neuropsychiatrist. Kudos, because some books written by doctors can be a little challenging. And then on Saturday, January the 30th of this month, we're having the first ever Senior Empowerment and Education Day being held and hosted by the Largo City Police Department Senior Services Division. Now, it's interesting, Jack, I don't know if you've ever Googled the state of Florida to find out what cities had aging services or a senior services division. There's actually only 4 in the entire state. Tampa has an aging services, relatively new, just started in the last 2 years. They're getting their sea legs, and they've planned a couple caregiver events. But the Largo City Police Department established a senior services division over 30 years ago. And the officer, who is extremely modest and hates it when I give her any kind of an attention, is Rachelle Poinsett. Well, we're going to be doing on the Senior Empowerment Day, it's all going to be about living healthy, wealthy, and wisely, but more importantly, how to prevent scams, how to know what scams are hitting out there. We're going to have the Fifth Third Bank is sending in their fraud specialists. The Attorney General's office will have the Shine Group on hand. And more importantly, we have free lunch and free on-site respite care. So if you are on a Saturday going, wait, I would love to get out of the house for a few minutes. I'd love to be able to take it and come and learn some information. There's also door prizes. Vendors are going to be there as well. So I encourage everyone to come out. Again, that's Saturday, January the 30th, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. You can register by calling them at 727-518-3131, or you can always register on my website, which is agingguidebook1.com. Again, now just real quickly, I'm going to tell you a little bit. We have some exciting guests coming up in the next couple of weeks. You can always download on YouTube and look at The Karen Rizzo Show, Karen with a Y. If you want to tap into any show that we've already done, over the last couple of weeks, we talked about home care options. We talked about choosing a primary care physician. A big hot topic was about Medicare versus a Medicare Advantage or / disadvantage plan, depending on the circumstances there. Next week, we're going to have John Piazza Jr. on. He's going to be discussing the newest and latest technology on stem cell research therapies, the good stem cell, the one that's legal, the one that's ethical. And also, we're going to be having another couple of experts coming in on one of them's called a product called Reunion Care. Now, this is a new online website that families and caregivers can use. It's very affordable, something like $5 a month. But when you have family members out of state, it helps them stay connected to the care that their loved one is getting. So Monica Stinchula is going to be on in February 9th with us if you want to tap into that show. But as always, we have the website, agingguidebook1.com, that if you're interested in a book or your copy of Navigating the Healthcare System, it's a tool that has everything from phone numbers on elder law attorneys, how to choose. I did a whole chapter on how to select a nursing home because it's such a difficult thing for families. And you can always get that on Amazon. It's downloadable on Nook, on Kindle. Now in the digital age, Twitter is at Karen Rizzo Show 1. There's always the Tan Talk Network that you can download any of the shows. And as always, I always want to thank my sponsors, Arcadia Home Care and Staffing. We're going to have her on the show in a few weeks. And Q Shift, which is all about the changing shift in electronic personal health records. And remember, Tampa Bay, we're all aging. And the goal of this show is hopefully we can all do so a little more healthy, wealthy, and wisely. So as always, I want to thank my guests. Thank you, Jack, for being here. Appreciate your time. I know it's busy. And if anyone is interested in contacting him and his team, you can check them out, Rosenkranz 4 law.com.
Lawforelders.com.
Lawforelders.com. And then, I always Google Rosenkranz. But as always, we want to thank you for tuning in and appreciate everyone's time. And as we approach the new year, I hope you're living it very healthy. Have a great week.
WTAN, Clearwater, Tampa Bay. WDCF, Dade City, Tampa Bay. WZHR, Zephyr Hills, Tampa Bay. Listen.
GOP hopes to lead terror